A good day. Welcome to the Chai Academy, being broadcast from the Chai Center. We had a little bit of a technical issue, so we restarted it. So let's see if this works. We were only a couple of minutes into it. We have been discussing Rosh Hashanah, a Rosh Hashanah primer, how to prepare for Rosh Hashanah, how to make sure that when we go when we go into synagogue, and we want to make sure that we are prepared. So that's been the past few days. We want to make sure that we're prepared and that we are as ready as we can possibly be. Today's class is less of a preparation, but more general knowledge, which I guess Torah knowledge is also preparation, right? It says that Torah refines us. So Torah refines us. So if Torah refines us, that is a preparation. So let's begin. The Torah does not call this day Rosh Hashanah. That's Talmud. The Torah doesn't mention at all Rosh Hashanah. Talmud does. In the Torah it says Yom Teruah, the day of blowing. The mitzvah of the day is blowing of the shofar or hearing the shofar being blown by a proxy, an acceptable proxy. So that is the mitzvah of the day. And so on any Yom Tov in the Torah, any holiday in the Torah, yes, we make Kiddush and we celebrate, and times of the temple, they used to offer up special sacrifices, etc. But the main mitzvah is hearing the shofar being blown. And that's why the Torah calls it Yom Teruah, the day of blowing. Another place it calls it Zichron Teruah, the day of remembrance of the blowing, because when Rosh Hashanah falls out on a Shabbat, we do not blow the shofar on the Shabbat. We will blow the shofar on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. We don't blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. By the way, the rabbis manipulated the calendar that Rosh Hashanah can never fall out on a Sunday, can never fall out on a Wednesday, and can never fall out on a Friday. So therefore, because of that, Rosh Hashanah, the first day of Rosh Hashanah, could fall out on a Shabbat, and therefore there would be no shofar. But the second day of Rosh Hashanah could be a Sunday. So it's just the way they manipulated the calendar, and it's to do with which days the Beth Din meets. They don't want Yom Kippur to be on. They don't want Yom Kippur to be on a Friday. They don't want Yom Kippur to be on a Sunday, etc. So they manipulated the calendar. So the Torah is Yom Teruah, the day of Teruah, Zichron Teruah, remembrance of Teruah. The Torah also calls it Shabbat, Shabbaton, the day, the Shabbat of all Shabbats, the epitome of Shabbat, the pinnacle Shabbat, the best Shabbat. But as far as Rosh Hashanah, that is absolutely not a biblical phrase. That is a Talmudic phrase. Also, Yom Hadin, the Day of Judgment, not a biblical phrase. That's what it is, and we'll talk about these different phrases because they come into play here as far as this lesson. We also have given it a colloquial name called Yamim Noraim, the high holy days or the awesome days, and they are. But all these names came later. So Rosh Hashanah came Talmudic time, etc. Now, the reason why it's called, once again, why it's called Rosh Hashanah, because Rosh means head. Head, just like the head, the brain is in charge of the entire body. And without brain, if a person's brain dead, they cannot live. The heart may keep on pumping, but it's not called life. So too, and because the brain is the most important organ, the brain gives you sight and hearing, gives you smell, and gives you speech, etc. So so too Rosh Hashanah is the head of the year, the head of the year. Now the reason, we anglicized it. We gave it other meaningful names. They're meaningful. Each one is a meaningful name. And so probably New Year is the closest to being anglicized. Head of year, right? New Year is appropriate. It is. But it's probably the closest to anglicization. Now, the interesting, very interesting, fascinating to note that Shana means year. So head of year. Shana, the reason why the word Shana was chosen to mean year by God in the Torah is because the numerical value of the word Shana is 355. Shin, the Hebrew letter Shin, numerically is 300. The next letter Nun is 50. The next letter Hey is 5. 355. How many days are there in a lunar calendar, a Jewish year? 355. So Rosh Hashanah, this is the head of the 355 days of the rest of the year. So nothing's coincidental. Shana is numerically 355, so it was chosen for the word to be meaning year. 355 days in a year. On Rosh Hashanah, by the way, just as a point of interest, the sages say that God, it's a day of judgment, right? Yom Hadin. Essentially, God takes out three separate books. Have them reconnect. I'm trying my best. We are now on the Chai Center page, and it is on the Chai Center. The Chai Center is on the Chai Center page. I just confirmed that. There's three books that God produces. One book is for the righteous, a tzaddik, which is very few and far between. We shouldn't even aspire to be a tzaddik. It's way over our pay grade. A tzaddik is given the decision, and a positive decision, right then and there. And then God closes the book, does not have to wait for Yom Kippur. A rasha, a wicked, the polar opposite of a tzaddik. We shouldn't strive to be that either. Definition of a rasha is bad. God also decides there and then on Rosh Hashanah what's going to be that person's year. And sometimes, by the way, God gives them leeway and God gives them enough rope to hang themselves. So just because we see a rasha having luck, fortune, a good year than you are, it does not mean that its fate is not set in stone. There will be a day of judgment. There will be a day of Yom Adin, and that is decided on Rosh Hashanah, when it will be. The Rosh Hashanah for most of us is that God makes a decision of what type of year you're going to have. The average folk, the average Joe. What type of year you're going to have. That God suspends judgment until Yom Kippur. And we work through these 10 days from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur on improving ourselves, on resolutions. On Yom Kippur, you ask for atonement. There's a great question. Why isn't atonement first on Rosh Hashanah before Yom Kippur? So the answer is, you've got to really understand what you're atoning for. You can't just walk in on Rosh Hashanah and say, God, forgive me because I've been bad. No, analyze. Make resolutions. You have to positive change has to be thought about, and then you can ask for atonement. So throughout these 10 days, God decides on Rosh Hashanah, and then on Yom Kippur, He seals it. So you have 10 days, really. You have 30 days to prepare. You have a lifetime to prepare. But in Rosh Hashanah, God makes the judgment. Yom Kippur, He seals the judgment. We can always change the judgment, but it's harder because God essentially writes it. Yom Kippur seals it, and then puts the book away. Now we got to ask God to take down the book and reassess and reevaluate. And please, 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 please. So that essentially is what happens for the average Joe. So Rosh Hashanah through Yom Kippur are incredibly important, and they're like one unit. Now, we're taught that there are 4 Rosh Hashanahs throughout the year. We know one the best, Rosh Hashanah, right? So when everybody gathers in shul, beginning of the year, and that's the reason, by the way, another reason why it's called Rosh Hashanah, because it's beginning of the year. The year changes. So this year is 5781 from creation of man, Homo sapien. And Rosh Hashanah begins 5782. And that's why it's called Rosh Hashanah. Right? It's the new year. January 1st changes from 2021 to 2022. So too Rosh Hashanah changes from 5781 to 5782. So it is technically a new year and the quintessential new year. And but there are other new years, and it may sound foreign. To say that Rosh Hashanah is a there are 4 Rosh Hashanahs, but not really, because if you think about it, even in the United States, right, we have January 1st as the new year, right? We have September as the school year. That's when the new school year starts. Then we have September. Most businesses have, or June 30th, many businesses have the end of their fiscal year, and July 1st begins their new fiscal year. I remember when we incorporated here at the Chai Center, we were given a choice. Do you want your year, listen to the wording, do you want your year to end December 31st or June 30th? So the fiscal year, and by the way, and the government's fiscal year is October. So we have in the United States, we do have years. We do have years, different marks. So Rosh Hashanah would be the day of Yom Adin, but it would be the new year for the year. The ecclesiastical year is Rosh Hashanah. Now, Rosh Hashanah in the Torah, it calls it the 7th month. The first day of the 7th month is Rosh Hashanah. So it's not the new year for months. The new year for months is Nisan. The first day of Nisan is the first day of the first month of 5782. But 5783 will change on Rosh Hashanah. Now, the reason why Nisan was chosen as the first year of the months is because that is the month. In the month of Nisan, we became a nation. We became a people. We left Egypt. So to recognize it, because until we left Egypt, we were just a nomad tribe that was enslaved in a foreign country. We were not our own. When we left Egypt, in the month of Nisan, we became a people. And that is the day we can say, this is our first month as a people. So the first of Nisan is the first month, celebrating us as a people. Almost like July 4th is when the United States celebrates its independence. Nisan 1 is our new year for our independence. The first of Nisan is also it plays legally. And as we'll discuss, the different legalese between Rosh Hashanah of months and Rosh Hashanah for years. A king. In times of biblical times, in temple times, we had a king. Now, in contracts in biblical times, you had to write the day of the month, the year, and the year, which year is it of the king. So a contract would look like this. The 7th day of Nisan in the year 5781. In the second year of the reign of King Shlomo. And when Nisan the 1st came again, it would be the 3rd year of the reign of King so-and-so. Because even if Shlomo didn't reign a full year, Nisan 1 becomes the new year of Shlomo's reign, or whoever's reign, King David's reign, or King Rehovam's reign, or King Shaul's reign, whatever it may be. So we have to stipulate when the king is, which year of the king it's at. And probably, by the way, the king on Nisan 1, the king probably got a raise. He was awarded additional taxes to the crown. But the year in contracts only changed on Rosh Hashanah. So we write a ketubah, a marriage document, or you write a divorce document, or you write a document a document to loan money to a mortgage. You would write a document. It would change depending on the year. So on Rosh Hashanah, the day before Rosh Hashanah would be 5781 to the 1st year of the reign of King Solomon. And the day after Rosh Hashanah, it would be, the 3rd day of the 7th month, 5782, in the 1st year to the reign of King Solomon. So it changes, years changes on Rosh Hashanah for months and years, and for years, I'm sorry, and the new year for months, Nisan, is when the king gets his new year recorded. We were a people. The question was, were we a people before Abraham? We were a people. But we were nothing. We were before Abraham. No, Abraham was the first converted Jew. Abraham was the first converted Jew. Isaac was the first born Jew. And Jacob is the father of the 12 tribes. But from Abraham and on, Abraham was the father of not only Jews, he was the father of many, many peoples. The Arabs, other ethnicities. But the first Jew was Abraham. The firstborn Jew was Isaac. And we were very, very small. And once we got to Egypt, we grew. So far we've discussed 2 Rosh Hashanahs. Rosh Hashanah for the year. Were we a people before we were a religion? We were monotheist. Abraham was a monotheist. That was the only distinction. He believed in the one God. Everybody else was polytheists, believed in more than one God, or pagans. That was the difference. Back then, if you were monotheist, then you followed Abraham, who followed the one God. So far we've discussed two New Years. New Year's for the year, and New Year for the kings and the months. There's another year, Tu B'Shvat, the 15th of Shvat. It's the New Year for trees. Essentially, it's recorded that on the 15th day of Shvat in Israel, the trees start to come back to life. It's dormant. You wouldn't know it by looking at a tree, but deep, deep below the earth, there is a resurrection of life for the trees, for the bushes, etc. But that's not why it's the new year. It's the new year because the Torah tells us that when we plant a tree, a fruit-bearing tree, for the first 3 years, we are not allowed to eat of its fruit. The 4th year we may. It's called Orla, the first 3 years. Where'd you count a year? Do you count it from the day you planted? And therefore you have to keep, okay, I planted this one January 4th. I planted this one December 9th. Oh, I planted this. Oh, I must remember I planted this in the middle of June. It was a little bit late because it was the hot season. The Torah tells us no. If you planted it before the 15th day of Shvat, the 10th month, then it is the current year. If you planted it after, then you're in this current year. And if you planted it on the 14th day of Shvat, then the 15th day of Shvat, 1 day later, becomes year 2. That's why it's a new year. Because as far as counting Orla, it's also counting tithings. It says the first year you have to give a tithe to the Kohen. Second year you have to give, and the Levian, right? The second year you have to tithe. You have to go to Israel, go to Jerusalem. I'm sorry. The first 2 years you have to tithe to give to the Kohen and Levi. That's the third year you go to Jerusalem, or you give to the poor people. It's the third year actually you give to the poor people. Whatever. I'm not. It's a little. But the bottom line is there's different years for different products. How do you know which year? Once again, the 15th day of Shvat is a demarcation. It is the day we separate the year before and the year after. Tu B'Shvat. We celebrate Tu B'Shvat. It's called the New Year for trees. It's the Jewish Earth Day. It's where we make sure to eat fruit. We also, it's a day to ponder, are we being nice to our earth? You know, in Genesis, the Torah says that we are rulers of the earth, la'avda to work it, al-shamrin to guard it. We can't just pour pollutants on the earth. That's not guarding it. It's destroying it. So, we, and by the way, we've always known this, but Al Gore, in his global warming zest, he actually mentioned the Genesis verse. He did. It was interesting to hear Al Gore mention what I just said about Genesis. The 4th year is the first day of the 6th month, Rosh Chodesh Elul. The first day of the 6th month is the first year of tithing for animals. So you have to offer certain animals, and the Torah tells us if they're the first year of life, second year of life, they have to be a young bullock, they have to be this, that, and the other, and you have to give tithing to the Kohen, and this year and that year, and you have only to a certain time to offer your firstborn, etc. Give your firstborn to a Kohen. How do you know which year, what year? So animals that exist before Rosh Chodesh Elul are in their first year, the first day of Elul. If they don't exist, then the next year begins the new year. And you don't have to start writing down what day was Bessie born. What day was Sheila the sheep born? You just, did they exist before the first day of Elul? Yes or no? And if they did, that's their first year. Then the first day of Elul becomes their second year, and so on and so forth. So it's not dissimilar to how the United States runs different fiscal years and different years and different years. It's just an interesting point. But here's the parting thought. On Rosh Hashanah, we're talking about the main one, the New Year for year, the new year, Yom Adin, the day of judgment. And that's why there's other names for it. The day we blow the shofar. On that day, kings are being judged, trees are being judged, we're being judged, bushes are being judged, animals are being judged. And that's why you have so many people gather on Rosh Hashanah, because everything you own, everything you'll touch, everything you'll see, sniff, smell, your own soul, for crying out loud, is being judged on Rosh Hashanah. So while Tu B'Shvat may be the new year for trees, the trees are being judged not on Tu B'Shvat. They're being judged on Rosh Hashanah, the day we know colloquially and practically as Rosh Hashanah. And that's why Rosh Hashanah is so vastly important, because that's the year where, that's the day where you pray for everything. Everything matters. If you enjoyed this class, please feel free to share it with others. Please feel free to join the Price Center for High Holidays. If you would like to see additional classes, it's thehighcenter.com/academy. God bless. Sorry about the technical issues to start.